Welcome to my water boiling show, as my two assistants haul in a big bucket of hot water accompanied by the angelic choir. They pour it into the iron cage. The sharp screams instantly pierced the night sky, leaving the guests stunned, and even the choir stopped singing. Yet the host, Dickiel, remained unfazed. He ordered his assistants for a repeat of the hot water show, and as the second bucket of water hit the cage, the screams became more like a fading cheer. Choir kids ran back inside, leaving the square so quiet you could hear a pin drop. After the third bucket, the slave's voice was gone like it was on vacation. Now, the butler whispered a gentle reminder to Dickiel, hinting that the show was a bit much, but Dickiel brushed off the discomfort like a bad hair day, insisting on another bucket. Just then, Karen and the pastor stepped forward, courageously facing Dickiel's rage to open up the iron cage. When they brought the slave out, he was as lifeless as a mannequin, and Karen gently placed him on horseback, taking the body back to the farm like the world's saddest. The farmer's wife saw this and wept, watching her husband's body go. But she was powerless against Dickiel's tyranny, as this landowner was no pushover, with ties to the king tighter than a pair of spandex leggings. Karen, a retired captain, had been living in a veterans' community that was as lively as a graveyard, while the king was busy trying to squeeze out more taxes by sending settlers trying to settle uncharted land, but the weather and terrain weren't friendly. After decades of trying, every expedition had ended in failure, so Karen volunteered to give it a shot, but the ministers barely looked up from their papers. They figured the only thing growing there would be rocks and sand, nothing that would tickle a farmer's fancy. Ministers disliked funding barren land, but Karen said he needed no money. His veterans' benefits could cover the costs, but if he succeeded, he wanted a fancy title and his own castle with servants see just like in the movies. The ministers finally agreed, thinking why not? Karen wasn't spending the royal treasury after all. Off he went to the Jutland wilderness, embarking on a solo adventure that could rival any blockbuster film. He wandered around scoping out good soil and encountered some bandits, with a little girl capturing his attention. A bandit suddenly attacked him, but Karen, a soldier, quickly handled it, and the girl fled. Soon enough, Karen found a good patch of land and discussed building a house with the local sheriff and pastor. The pastor introduced Karen to a farming couple who had fled Dickiel's estate, just like escaping a bad reality show. Even though Karen knew hiring slaves was illegal, he hired them anyway because of their tragic backstory. 4 months later, his house was finally built. He named the house the King's Abode, while Dickiel learned that Karen was breaking ground on his turf. Though Dickiel wasn't farming, he sure didn't want anyone encroaching on his land, like someone trying to snatch his crown. Karen saw no peace. The girl often borrowed chickens backed by bandits. The workers dared not stop her, so Karen installed bells around the estate. While Barbara was about to do laundry, she spotted 2 figures in the distance and immediately recognized Major Price. Clearly, they were sent by Dickiel, so Erickson and Barbara quickly ducked for cover. Luckily, Major Price's visit wasn't about them, but to invite Karen to dine at Hall's estate. To avoid offending this heavyweight, Karen had no choice but to obediently throw on his military uniform and head over. In the Grand Hall, Karen met Dickiel's cousin, Elder, whose dad was tight with the king. But Elder wasn't a fan of her cousin, as Dickiel was arrogant and cruel, delighting in belittling Karen's background. During dinner, Dickiel insisted Karen acknowledge the Emperor's claim, even presenting a contract where Karen had to hand over 50% of his earnings. Before Karen reached the exit, Elder signed for him, first time seeing someone defy her cousin. Afterwards, she invited Karen to the upcoming Harvest Festival next month, gifting him a handkerchief as a token. The next day, when Karen returned to the farm, he found his workers had almost all vanished. The only ones left were Erickson and Barbara, while the others had been lured away by Dickiel's shiny offers. Even the sheriff and pastor advised Karen, saying no one dared oppose Dickiel, but he firmly believed he had the king's seal on his side. Butler snooped around about Karen's status and found out he had just 100 crowns left from his veteran payout. If no one helped Karen with his farming, come winter, he'd be in despair. Dickiel, overhearing this, wore a smug grin. He even sent a little gift to Karen, just to remind him his position was as low as a feather in a storm. That night, Dekel hid in the shadows, waiting for the little girl to swipe some food. Karen demanded the little girl take him to the bandits, brandishing his gun like a Wild West movie star. Bright and early the next day, Karen followed the little girl right to the bandits' hangout. The bandits tensed up when they spotted Karen the veteran, but once he explained himself, they all burst into laughter. In this country, the laws ignored the Romani, but Karen couldn't care less. He even handed over his medal to express goodwill. And so, an epic bonfire began, with Erickson and Karen running the show, and everyone was hard at work like it was a company retreat. That evening, everyone gathered to celebrate, and the little girl performed the dance, tossing a stick tied with red ribbon at Karen, urging him to pick it up. If Karen picked up the stick, had become one of the little girl's noble friends. Karen pondered this for a moment and chose not to, glancing at the stick on the ground, sensing the little girl's mood take a dip.